We begin the Gemara on the bottom, towards the bottom of Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis, the beginning of the line. Amarav Pape Peiris Sheyatzu Chutz L'Tchum. Peiris that left their Tchum Shabbos. Just like regarding a person, there's a Tchum Shabbos. The same thing in the Gemara in Be'eh talks about this. There's also a Tchum Shabbos regarding the Peiris that are there with the person. So the Peiris that left their Tchum, v'chazru, and then they were brought back to their Tchum. Even the person that took it out, b'mezid, he brought it back b'mezid, loy hifsidu es mekayma. They don't lose their place that they had originally, that they could be taken out from where they are. If it's yontif, it could be carried out anywhere. Or on Shabbos, the peiris don't become asa to eat because it went out of the tchum. It came from out of the tchum and you're allowed to eat it. My time, what's the reason? Before we said if you leave the tchum and then if you come back, then you can't move it from its place. A person that is can't move from his place. So why a peiris is different? The reason is anusin in them. The peiris are anusin. The person which is amazed and is taking it out from one place to another, he's taking those peiris that don't have any das of their own. So the movement of the peiris is happening by inus. So if it comes back to its place where it was before, so then it's not a problem to use the peiris. So he asked a question to Rav Papa about this. Rav Nechemye, Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov, we learned in the Braise that Rav Nechemye and Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov say, Lo'olam asurin ad sheyachzeru l'mekaymon sheigigin. That peiris that go out of the tchum are going to be aser until they come back to their place b'sheigig. So what does it say here in the Braise? Only if it came back b'sheigig. B'sheigigin, if it came back b'sheigig, it's allowed. B'mezid loy, but not b'mezid. Clearly not like what Rav Papa said. So the Gemara Tanoi, Tamachleikis Tanoim. The Tanya, we learned in another Braise, peiris sheyatzu chutz l'tchum b'sheigig, peiris that left their tchum, and they left b'sheigig yeyachlo. So they're allowed to be eaten. They were taken out b'sheigig, so even outside the tchum they could be eaten, or they could be carried around if it's yontif. B'mezid, if it was taken out b'mezid, lo yeyachlo. So then you should not eat them. That's the Tanakama. So this is again not like l'chayre, not like Rav Papa. Let's see the Hemshech. The Gemara will explain what's going on. Rav Nechemya says, b'mekaymon, if the peiris went back to their place, yeyachlo, they can be eaten. Shaloi b'mekaymon, but as long as they were taken out of the tchum and they're not in their place, lo yeyachlo, they can't be eaten. So the question now is, what exactly is the scenario that Nechemya is talking about? When he says b'mekaymon and shaloi b'mekaymon, he doesn't mention whether he's talking about a sheigig or a mezid. The Tanakama is speaking about sheigig or mezid. What is Rav Nechemya talking about? Zok the Gemara. Ileimen b'mekaymon b'mezid, is Rav Nechemya saying that even if it was brought back to the place, even b'mezid, that's when Rav Nechemya says it's allowed, but you can't say that. V'haketani behedye, we learned before, that in the Braise, Rabbi Nechemya, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that he says, Rabbi Nechemya, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Oimrim, lo oilam asurim, ad sheyachzal mekaymon sheigigin. It's aser until it comes back to its place, and only if it comes back b'sheigig. So you can't say that over here, b'mekaymon, is yeichlu, that you could eat it b'mekaymon, that's even b'mezid. Only sheigig. B'sheigigin, b'mezid loy. So then what's the pshat here in the Braise? How do we learn? What did he mean to say when he said b'mekayman yeichlu and shalei b'mekayman lo yeichlu? Elalav b'mekayman b'sheigig. When he's saying b'mekayman you could eat it, he means when it was brought back b'sheigig. But the Tanakama also said b'sheigig yeichlu. So there's something missing over here. So the Gemara says v'chesuri mechseri v'achi ketani. So l'chayru we have to say that there's something missing here in this Braise, and this is how you have to read the Braise fully. Peiris sheyatzu chutz l'tchum b'sheigig. The peiris that left the tchum and was only b'sheigig. Yeichlu. You can eat it outside the tchum because it only left b'sheigig, you can eat it there. B'mezid, if it left the tchum b'mezid, then lo yeichlu. You brought it there b'mezid, you're not allowed to eat it. Med varam amurim. So the Tanakama continues and says, when is this shalei b'mekayman? Shaloi b'mekayman, we make this distinction between sheigig and mezid. Aval b'mekayman, if the peiris were brought back to its original place, afilu b'mezid yeichlo. Even b'mezid, you're allowed to eat it. So basically, the Tanakama is saying that as long as you have one positive aspect with these peiros, you're allowed to eat it. Meaning, if either it was brought back, even though it was brought back b'mezid, but it's back in its original place, you're allowed to eat it. If it was taken out of the tchum, but as long as you have one positive aspect in the sense that it's b'sheigig, you're allowed to eat it. You don't have to have both together, that it should be brought back to its original place and b'sheigig. Also, Rab Nechemya lemeimar, and Rab Nechemya comes and says, "Afilu b'mekayma nami b'sheigig in b'mezid loy." Even if it was brought back to its original place, you're only allowed to eat it or use it, to take it away out of its tchum, to take it out and move it around more than Dalar Amis, that is. Only if afilu b'mekayma nami b'sheigig in b'mezid loy. Only if it was brought in b'sheigig and not b'mezid. In other words, Rab Nechemya is saying that regarding the peiros, there's two conditions in order to be allowed to eat it. It has to be brought back to its place, and it was brought back b'sheigig. Okay, so the point is that we have a source from what the Tanakama says, like what Rav Papa said, that if it came back b'mezid, as long as it came back to its original place, it's allowed. Only Rav Nechemya argues on that. So the Gemara, loy, we don't have to say that this is the pshat and the machlokes of the Tanakama and Rav Nechemya. B'mezid b'mekayman the kulam le'pligi asa. If it was brought back b'mezid to its original place, everybody would agree that in such a case it's asr. We could say that the whole argument between the Tanakama and Rab Nechemya is only regarding when it was brought out b'sheigig. It was brought out b'sheigig, that's the machlokes. Tanakama sava b'sheigig shari. It was brought out b'sheigig, it's allowed. Shalei b'mkayman, even if it's not in its place. Rab Nechemya sava afil sheigig b'mkayman in shalei b'mkayman loy. That even sheigig, if it was brought out b'sheigig, it's not allowed. There has to be sheigig and b'mkayman in order for it to be allowed. So therefore, the machlokes between the Tanakama and Rab Nechemya is only regarding when it was brought out. Whether you're allowed to eat it over there if it was brought out b'mezid. Or it has to be, when it was brought out b'sheigig, that is. So the Tanakama says, since it was only brought out b'sheigig, it's allowed. Rab Nechemya says that no, it has to be b'mekayman, back to its place, and brought back b'sheigig. So we don't have a source for what Rav Papa said. What Rav Papa said, that if it was brought back to its place b'mezid, that it's allowed. We don't see that in the words of the Tanakama. So the Gemara, however, it says in the Seifa of this Braisa, which is what we quoted before, or actually some say from Rashi, it's mashma. It's not the Seifa from this Braisa, but it's another Braisa where Rab Nechemya speaks. And what did Rab Nechemya say? Rab Nechemya v'Rab Eliezer ben Yaakov oimrim lo oilam asurin, the peiros are always asur ad sheyachzaru lemekayman sheigigin, unless it came back to its original place b'sheigig. What's Rab Nechemya and Rab Eliezer ben Yaakov emphasizing here with their lashon lo oilam? Really, it's always going to be asur unless it comes back to their place b'sheigig. It's mashma sheigig in b'mezid loy. He's telling you, even after it came back to its place, it's still only going to be mutter if you have a second condition that it was b'sheigig. The Tanakama sava b'mezid namishay. From the fact that Rab Nechemya is emphasizing that really la'olam, Rashi's medayik this, that he says la'olam, that he's coming to argue with somebody and to say that even if it came back to its place, it must be b'sheigig. So it's mashma that the Tanakama disagreed, and the Tanakama holds b'mezid namishay. The Tanakama holds, as the Gemara suggested before, as long as you have one positive condition here to make it mutter, it's okay. Whether it is outside but b'sheigig, that's okay. Or if it was brought back, but it was brought back even b'mezid, but it was brought back, that would also be okay. Like Rav Papa said, that even when it came back b'mezid, it's okay. So Shmami no, from here we see that the Tanakama holds like what Rav Papa said. So the Gemara vaytam Rav Nachman o Mashmuel. A person is walking, he doesn't know the tchum of Shabbos. So how far is he going to walk? It takes 2,000 average steps. A step of a person is about an amma. So therefore the 2,000 amas, a person could measure his steps and he knows what the tchum Shabbos is. So somebody shainim say that this Gemara here must be speaking about a person that's walking l'dvar mitzvah. Because we learned in Masechta Shabbos, all the way at the end of Masechta Shabbos, you're not allowed to do any medida on Shabbos. You're not allowed to measure on Shabbos. So here the person's measuring his steps. It must be that he's walking on Shabbos for the purpose of a mitzvah, and therefore he's allowed to measure this. Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel. Rav Nachman said another halacha in the name of Shmuel. Shavas bebika, a person established his dwelling on Shabbos in an open valley. No mechitzas. It's a carmelis. You're not allowed to carry in a carmelis. And then v'hikifua nochre mechitza. On Shabbos, Goyim surrounded this valley with a wall or a fence. B'Shabbos. So mahalech alpayim amma. So he's now allowed to walk in this place 2,000 amas. Umetaltel bekula, and you're also allowed to carry in the entire area. So both the person is allowed to go as far as he usually can go, alpayim amma, and also carrying. You can carry in the entire place. Al yedei zrika. How is he going to carry in the entire place? In other words, when it says metaltel bekula, it's saying that he's not only allowed to carry within 2,000 amas, he's also allowed to carry even further outside of his 2,000 amas, where he's only allowed to walk up to. How though? Al yedei zrika. He can throw the item out of his 2,000 amas. Rav Huna says, mahalech alpayim amma. The person can walk 2,000 amas, but metaltel and metaltel dal damas, and he's only allowed to be metaltel within 4 amas. Fragt the Gemara, v'netaltel bekula al yedei zrika. According to Rav Huna, why isn't he allowed to be metaltel in this entire area, which is now enclosed with a mechitza? Why shouldn't he be allowed to be metaltel in the entire area by throwing it, even if he's not going out of his tchum? He's not allowed to walk out of his tchum in this area, but why can't he be metaltel in the entire thing? So before I go further, let me just explain over here. The machlokes between Rav Nachman and Rav Huna is only regarding the tiltal. Are you allowed to carry out of your dal damas or not? But benigeh to walking, even though right now it's surrounded by a wall, and it's a reshus hayachid at this point, but nevertheless, the halacha of tchum Shabbos, that he's not allowed to go out of his alpayim amma, still applies. Even though he's in a reshus hayachid, in reshus hayachid, you're usually allowed to walk as far as you want. So the reason is, as Rashi explains, when Shabbos began and he was kind of shvisa, he established his dwelling in that place, there was no mechitza yet. So it didn't have a status of reshus hayachid. He made his dwelling in a place which is a carmelis. So the halacha of tchum Shabbos already applied to him in that area. Putting up a wall in the middle of Shabbos does not change that halacha of the Isser of Tchum Shabbos that took effect already at the beginning of Shabbos. That's as far as his being allowed to walk out of his Tchum Shabbos. However, even when you put up a mechitza in the middle of Shabbos, we learned a few times before already, a mechitza that's put up in the middle of Shabbos changes the status of the area. It does become now a reshus hayachid. So now that it is a reshus hayachid, as far as carrying items in this entire area, it's all a reshus hayachid, and the person is allowed to carry in this entire area. So therefore, Rav Nachman says he can carry as far as he wants inside this area, and actually even out of the alpayim amma, as long as he's throwing it out of his alpayim amma. Rav Huna says he can walk only alpayim amma, but the tiltul, he can carry an item only within 4 amas. So now the Gemara is asking, what is the reason, according to Rav Huna, that regarding the item he can't carry more than dal damas? It's inside the reshus hayachid now. So he answers, like the Gemara, Shema yemashach acha chafetzai. We are afraid if he's going to be allowed to carry outside of the tchum of alpayim amma, by like the way Rav Nachman said, that he can throw it out, so then he may come to follow his chayfetz out of his tchum Shabbos. So we don't want him to throw it out of his tchum. Frek the Gemara, okay, so he can't throw it out of his tchum, but alpayim miyas letaltal. However, within the 2,000 amas that he's allowed to walk, he should also be allowed to carry the item. There's no chash that he's going to follow his item outside. The problem is only if he throws it out of his alpayim amma. But why shouldn't he be allowed to carry it within the tchum Shabbos? Kiyorche, like the person himself, he can go there, so why shouldn't he be allowed to carry the chayfetz there as well? And for the Gemara, mishom dahave kemechitze shenifritza b'milua l'makom asela. It's like if you have a courtyard that was completely surrounded, and now it's completely open to an area, to a shasarabim, to a carmelis, that's aser. So that affects this area as well. You're totally open to a makim aser, so the place that was before mutter becomes aser as well. So over here as well, since within this bikkur that's now surrounded by a big mechitza, part of it is an area that it's aser to carry this chayfetz there. as he was geyser, because we're afraid that he's gonna, if he carries out of his tchum, he might, if he throws it out of his tchum, he might follow his chayfetz. So part of this area is aser. So now, because of that, even the area where it's mutter for him to walk and even carry, but it's totally open to an area that's aser. If it's totally open to an area that's aser, you're not allowed to carry this chayfetz anywhere in this area. So therefore, you could only carry it within Dalet Amos. Dr. Gemara, Chia Barav Oma. Chia Barav says, the third opinion, Mahalach al Payim Amma. The person himself in this area can walk 2,000 Amos. Umetaltel Bal Payim Amma. And he could also carry an item within this area 2,000 Amos. Dr. Gemara, Kaman, according to whose opinion is Chia Barav going, the Loiker of Nachman. The Loiker of Hona, he's not following not of Nachman's opinion and not Rav Hona's opinion. So, Dr. Gemara, Eime, we have to change what Chia Barav said, Metaltel ba'arba amas. Ba'arba. Yitaka said only like Rav Hona, that the chayfetz is only allowed to carry with him 4 amas. Dr. Gemara, Eihachi haina de Rav Hona. So he's saying the exact same thing as Rav Hona. It's not another opinion. So it says, the Gemara says, yeah, you're right. Eime v'chein amar Rav Chia Barav. This is what Chia Barav said. So Rashi here explains, why wouldn't it be possible to say that Rav Chia Barav had a third opinion? He doesn't have to agree to Rav Huna and or either Rav Huna or Rav Nachman. What's the problem? So really, the question here is not because he has to agree to them, but the question is mimanavshach. If he's concerned about the fact that a person that throws his chayfetz out of his tchum may come to follow it, and therefore he asked it like Rav Huna, so then you should hold all the way like Rav Huna. Once you answer that, so then even the area that's permitted is open to an area that's aser, and then the whole area becomes aser. You can't carry a chayfetz at all. Elamai, he doesn't hold it that gzeira. So then he should hold completely like Rav Nachman, that you're allowed to carry and even throw it outside of your 2,000 amas. We're not concerned that you're going to come to go after it. So it's really a mamanavshach question. That's why in this case, the Gemara didn't see any svara to say that there's a third opinion. So the Gemara, Rav Nachman said to Rav Hona, Loi tifloi galei de Shmuel. Don't argue on my opinion, which I said in the name of Shmuel, the Tanya Kavasei, because we learned like Shmuel's opinion in a Braisa. Tanya, we learned in a Braisa, a person that has an Eidov, and he can walk 2,000 amas from his Eidov Tchumen, and now he's measuring. He's measuring from his Eidov, and he ends up in the middle of another city, and he's right in the middle of the city. So now that's the end where he can go to and not any further than that. So now what's the halacha? Now if this entire city would all be included in his tchum, so then he can walk around in the entire city anywhere. But if you were not in this city for Shabbos, you were in a different place, and now you're entering into the city with your tchum, so wherever your tchum ends, your 2,000 amas ends, it ends in the middle of the city, you can't go past that. So, but the Braisa says, Mutter l'taltel b'chol ir kula. So he could only walk until that space of the 2,000 amas where it ends, but he could be metaltal in the entire city. Any item. How is this? And the Braisa continues, wait a moment, the Braisa continues, he's not allowed to walk with his feet past his tchum, which ended in the middle of the city, but he could be metaltal in the entire city. How? How is the person metaltal in the entire city if he himself can't walk past half of the city where his tchum ended? Don't you think the pshat over here is that he could only walk until half of the city, but he can throw the item further? So what do you see over here? It says in the Braisa that we're not concerned that if we allow him to throw it further out of his tchum, that he may come to go follow after the chayvitz that he threw out of his tchum. We're not concerned about that. So this is a raya to what Rav Nachman said in the name of Shmuel. Rav Huna answers, Loi. That's not what we're talking about. That Braisa is not talking about a dezrike. Al Yidei Meshicha. Over there, it's allowing him to be metaltal from outside the tchum if he's bringing something in. He's drawing and taking something in, not throwing it out. When you're throwing it out, I'm right, Rav Huna says. You would be concerned that the person, there's excited that he would throw it out. But Al Yidei Meshicha, there's no concern. There's no gezeda. Okay? Rashi is actually not guided this distinction of the Gemara between Al Yidei Zrike and between Al Yidei Meshicha, because if Al Yidei Zrike, it's still aser. So there's the second point that the Gemara made before. If the area that you're in is totally open to another area that's aser, so then even that area that you're in is mutter, becomes aser like that area you're totally open to. And that second point is not really answered by this answer of the Gemara, Al Yidei Meshicha. So Rashi says loy garsinon, although Rashi explains the answer, but he says loy garsinon. So Rav Huna says as follows: a person is measuring from his Eiruvin, from the place where he was for Shabbos, and he's measuring 2,000 amas. And where does his tchum end? His tchum ends halfway inside the chotzer, inside the Rishus HaYachid. Ein loy elo chatzi chotzer. So he could only walk until where his tchum goes, in the middle of the chotzer. Says the Gemara Pshita. It's obvious. That's where his tchum Shabbos ends. So why would I think that he can go further? Why does it have to say ein loy? He doesn't have any more. So the Gemara Eime yashle chatzi chotzer. It's telling you that until there he could go. He can't go further, but until there he could go. Frek the Gemara Hanami Pshita. It's also obvious that until that point, that's his tchum Shabbos. Until there he can go. And for the Gemara Ma'od Teime, I would think similar to what Rav Huna himself said before. I would think that if you allow a person to walk half of this chotzer, so he may come to be metaltal and carry in the rest of the chotzer as well. Kamash Malan. This is what he was teaching me over here. That inside a chotzer, we're not concerned about this. We're not concerned that he's going to come and carry more inside the chotzer. Okay. So this chotzer that the person came into is different than the bikka that we spoke about before, that the walls were put up in the middle of Shabbos. Over here we're talking about a chotzer that the walls were put up before, and over here you don't have. It's not the same thing as the case of the bikka that Rav Huna spoke about before. This is one pshat in Rashi. There's another pshat in Rashi though, that this whole case over here was not talking about the person walking, whether he's allowed to walk only half of the chotzer, or walk less than that. The whole pshita that the Gemara was asking over here, the whole discussion was about carrying. Is he allowed to carry until his place, or is he allowed to carry less than that? That's what we were talking about. And the whole Kamash Malan is regarding carrying. So the Gemara Vaita, Rav Nachman said, Maidali Huna. Huna would agree to me that Haya Maidali Daba v'kol samidasi al sfastikra. If a person is measuring a space of his Tchum Shabbos, and his Tchum Shabbos ends right at the edge of a roof that's sticking out of a house. Right there's the end of his Tchum Shabbos. Mutter letaltel b'chol habayis. He's allowed to be metaltel in the entire house, meaning he could only walk until the edge of that roof, but he wants to throw something into the house, like what Rav Nachman said before. Here, Rav Huna would agree to me that you're allowed. Why? Before Rav Huna said that there's a gzeira, that if you're allowed to throw out of your tchum, you may follow what you throw. My time, eh? The edge of the roof comes down, and that's sort of a reminder for the person that there's something like pressing down over him, and therefore he'll remember that he can't walk past that area, so even if he throws something past that into the house, he's not going to follow it. So over here we're not chayshish. Rav Huna bereided Rav Nosson said, Kitanoi, we could say that this machlokes of Rav Huna and Rav Nachman, whether we're chayshish, that if a person is going to carry in this area, he may come or throw out of his tchum, he may come to follow and walk out of the tchum as well. So this machlokes, whether we're geyser this is Kitanoi. This could be the machlokes of the Tanoim in our Mishnah. What did it say in the Mishnah? Goyim took a person and brought him to a different city out of his tchum. They put him inside a big Rishus HaYachid that's designated for animals, and it's enclosed area that's enclosed at Rishus HaYachid. Rabbi Gamliel v'Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah imrem mahalachas kula. He's allowed to walk in the entire area. Rabbi Yeshua v'Rabbi Akiva imrem, and Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Akiva say ein lo ela arba amas. He only has 4 amas that he's allowed to walk here. So this case is a bit different than the case that we had before with Rav Nachman and Rav Huna were arguing about. There we're talking about a person that began Shabbos in a bikah that was b'chlal not a Rishus HaYachid. It became a Rishus HaYachid later. Over here we're talking a place that was a Rishus HaYachid before, and the Goyim forced him. The Goyim forced him to go over here. So in this case, the Goyim forced him to go here. You're allowed to walk in the entire area, even outside of the Tchum. That's not the issue. It's different than before in that sense. That's what Rashi explains over here. But the Gemara now is going to make another comparison where we could say that this machlokes between Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Akiva is the machlokes that we had over here as well. Let's see. Again, so Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah say mahalachas kula. The Goyim placed you in this area, you can walk in the entire area. Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva, ein leila arba amas. He's in this area, he can only walk 4 amas. So what's the pshat? What are they arguing about? My love. Don't you think the argument is as follows? Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the Omru, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, they say, Mahalach Haskula, if the guy placed him in this Rosh Hashanah, he could walk in the entire Rosh Hashanah. Deloi Gazri Hiluch Dir Visar. There is no gzeira of this situation where he's inside the Rosh Hashanah, if the guy placed him there, Atu Hiluch Bebika. That he may confuse this. If you allow a person to walk here, he may confuse a situation where he's in an open valley that the guy put him down, or he's in an open valley that he might come to walk over there as well. We don't make this comparison. We're not guys at this. So now the Gemara says, if Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah hold that we're not geyser these two, that a person may confuse and make a mistake between these two, so if we don't make a gzeira that in this area we allow you to walk, because a person won't come to confuse it in another area which is not a Rosh Hashanah, which is a bika, that over there he's not allowed to walk, so tiltul atu hiluch legazri. So probably Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah also hold that we're not geyser, that if you allow a person to throw something out of his tchum, that he may come to walk and follow after it as well. That's their opinion. Shua, Rabbi Akiva, the Oimrim, Ein Le'ela Arba Amas. Rabbi Shua and Rabbi Akiva say if the Goyim placed him into this Rosh Hashanah, so even though he's in Rosh Hashanah, he's only allowed to walk Daled Amas. What's the reason? The Gazri Hiluch Dir Visar Otu Hiluch the Bikal, because there's a gzeira here. If you allow a person to walk in this area as wherever he wants because he's in Rosh Hashanah, he may confuse and think the same if he's put down in a bikah and there he's not allowed to walk wherever he wants. He's out of his Tchum Shabbos and it's not a Rosh Hashanah. So they made this gzeira. That was the basis for the Issa there. Now, with the Hiluch Otu Hiluch Gazri, so if they made this gzeira that you're not allowed to walk in this area because you may confuse it with another area where you're not allowed to walk, so Gazri tiltul atu hiluch. It's logical to say that their opinion would also be that if a person is allowed to walk in a certain area, and then you're not allowed to walk past that, you're also not allowed to throw past that, because you may come to follow it. So we can say that this concept, whether we're geyser by Erev Tchumen, is the machlokes over here in the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, no, it's not the same thing. Dilma, mimai, how can you compare the gzeira of our Mishnah to the gzeira that we're geyser here? Dilma, possibly, ki legazir Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. The fact that Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah were not geyser when a person is under Rosh Hashanah. Hiluch sar v'dir otu hiluch bika. They're not geyser that a person shouldn't be allowed to walk inside the Rosh Hashanah because at a different time in a different place in a bika he might confuse it. Why? So hani mili hasam b'shnei mekayim. It's two different places. This is inside the Rosh Hashanah, this is inside a bika. A person won't confuse that. Avol tiltul atu hiloch, the makim echadu, hochanami de gazri gzeire, shami yamashach chafetzai. But over here, in the case that Rav Huna was speaking about, allowing a person to throw out of the place where he's in, it's much more easy for a person to forget and follow the chayfetz that he threw. So over here, maybe they were geyser. Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Akiva, Nami, Mimai, the Mishum, the Gazrihu. How do you know the reason why Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Akiva said that in that case the person is not allowed to walk out of his Daled Amas is because of Gzeira, that you may confuse it with another place that's not a Rosh Hashanah. Dilme, maybe the reason is Mishum the Kasavri. They hold Ki Omerinan Kolabayas Kuloikar Ba'ames Domi. When do I say that the entire house, the entire area is considered to be like Daled Amas, that once you're placed in the Rosh Hashanah, you're allowed to walk around wherever you are. When you are dwelling in the place that has mechitzas, when the mechitzas were there, he was placed here from before Shabbos, so then the entire area is like your Daled Amas. You can walk as far as you want. Even though he's in a Rosh Hashanah, but he wasn't there, he didn't dwell there when Shabbos came in, so those mechitzas are not effective for his tchum, for how far he's allowed to walk. So he's not allowed to walk out of his Daled Amas. That halacha, if you were taken out of your tchum, you're not allowed to walk more than Daled Amas, applies even if it's a Rosh Hashanah, because you weren't there in the Rosh Hashanah when Shabbos came in. So there's no gezeira here necessarily, b'chlal, according to Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So there's no comparison, not from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Gamliel's shitta, and not from Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Akiva's shitta. So it's Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Akiva that said that it was asa, and their opinion is not necessarily based on any gzeira. Their opinion is just based on the fact that he wasn't there in this Rosh Hashanah when Shabbos came in. So therefore, you're not allowed to walk out of your Daled Amis like any other situation when a person comes out of his Tchum or was taken out of his Tchum. Okay, a good gebench yor, a ksiva v'chsim v'teiva, l'shana teiva, m'sukkah.